Hi everyone, this is Elam speaking right now. So welcome to my channel. Today we're gonna talk about the Stephen Krashen's theory of the language acquisition. So there are 5 hypotheses that he put forward, and the first one is the acquisition learning hypothesis. Here we should focus on the distinction between the acquisition and learning parts. The learning is explicit instruction or conscious process, and it's the deductive approach. That means the learner given the rules of target language directly and explicitly by the teachers. So the term learning applies to a more conscious process of accumulating knowledge of the features of a language, such as pronunciation, grammar rules, and specific structures. So here we need a conscious effort to learn a language as a foreign language or as a second language. Think about that as somebody as a learner needs a conscious effort, so we need focus on the grammar rules, the pronunciation, and the structures. And to learn all of these, we should make practice, maybe take an exam at school. So the learning process is really different from the acquisition. Like I said before, we need a conscious effort to learn a language with all the structures to learning. But when it comes to the acquisition, it is the product of the subconscious process, and it's necessary using language naturally in a communicative situations with others who know the language. So it requires meaningful interaction in the target language, and acquisition normally take place without the teacher. So here we expose the language itself. We don't need especially focus on the grammar rules of the language, the pronunciation, and all the structures, because we acquire the language in its natural environment with the natural context without a conscious effort. The second theory of the Stephen Krashen is the monitor hypothesis, and this theory focuses on the correctness of the language, because when we learn a language and expose to it, we begin to analyze the usage of that language. So we just try to grasp the meaning of what we hear during interaction, and we make analyze about the correctness of the sentence constructions, and also we try to create relation between the speech that's made and our background information about the language. So here we can say that the learners act as an editor or a checker in order to vanish the errors. So that's the point. So we can say that the learner edits and corrects their speech. So here is the aim of the monitor hypothesis is to give a speech more polished appearance. The third one is the input hypothesis that the Stephen Krashen put forward, and this theory is concerned with the acquisition, not learning. And the learners can acquire a foreign language when they are exposed to comprehensible input. But when it comes to the meaning of comprehensible input, we should talk about the I+1. And if the learner's proficiency level is at level I, the input they receive should be I+1. That means the input should be close to their level, because if the input is beyond the learner's proficiency level, that would be incomprehensible and inconvenient for learners. So the input should be slightly beyond their current level that provides a comprehensible input for a learner. So if the input too difficult to grasp, then the learners can get struggle and the conversation will be inconvenient. So let's give an example to make it clear for you. Assuming that you are in elementary level and the person you interact with is in advanced level, and he just tried to speak about the totalitarian system and the patriarchal society. Is it convenient? No. So here, the comprehensible input is really important for us. Like I said before, the comprehensible input should be slightly beyond our current level. Another hypothesis that put forward by the Stephen Krashen is the effective filter hypothesis. And in effective filter hypothesis, the learners should have emotional state. And that means the learners with high motivation, self-confidence, a low level of anxiety can facilitate the acquisition of second language. And there are a bunch of effective variables that playing role in the second language acquisition. So the students who has a positive feelings is better equipped for success, and it means they have low effective filter. But on the other hand, Stress, anxiety, and the negative feelings or experience are effective factor that can create a barrier to acquisition. So the students with uncomfortable environment would have a high effective filter in acquisition. The last theory of the staffing question is the natural order hypothesis, and in this hypothesis, the acquisition of the grammatical structures proceeds in a predictable order. And according to the Krashens, for a given language, some grammatical structures tend to be acquired early while others late. And this can be based on the first language background, the learner's age, and the conditions. That means even we have a systematical schedule while we learning language, that will be useless. For instance, we acquire the structure of yes or no questions before the WH questions. So it states that we acquire the language in a predictable order. So the Krashen rejects the grammatical structures, and he says we don't have to follow the order if the goal is acquisition.